We are looking at Constantine Brancusi's Torso of a Young Man from 1924. Here we see a representation, like in the Doryphorus, of the classical order, which is represented in the purity of forms and the smoothness of surfaces. Surfaces are thus more regular and predictable than we find in nature. An intellectual order, therefore, can produce simple curves and smooth surfaces that have a sensual appeal, as we see here. In fact, we can see that the roundness and regularity of the surface causes our eye to move straight up or across the figure. We have the fragment of the object, devoid of literal subject, as we find in the ruin of ancient sculpture where we only have the torso and can only imagine what the legs and arms and head might have looked like. So we have a reduction of forms and the suggestion of some primitive or archaic art from long ago. So we think of this polished bronze surface 18 inches high. Makes reference to polished marble surfaces. This work by Jean Hans Arp is called Human Concretion from 1935. In the 30s, Arp began to work freely in the round, modeling clay and plaster for transference to bronze and marble. Like Brancusi, he was devoted to mass over space as the principal element in sculpture. He was in the habit of naming his works after his compositions were completed, often by the suggested associations of critics, as we see in this particular work. This sculpture seems to suggest human anatomical parts. In fact, Arp called them human concretion. In fact, his friend Theo Dosberg had called them concrete art in the 30s. Arp said of concretion, "Concretion to me signifies the natural process of condensation, the hardening, the coagulating, the thickening, the growing together of forms. Concretion designates the solidification of a mass. Concretion designates the curdling of the earth, of the heavenly bodies. It designates solidification of stone, plant, animal, and man. It is something that has grown," end of quote. And so here we think of it as a biomorphic form. We think of it as an embryonic form or a seed that seems to be growing, but at the same time the unpredictable curves of biomorphic forms. Henry Moore's Family Group from 1949. Moore was the most important sculptor of the 20th century. His sculpture in the early 50s became large, very monumental. He thought of these large sculptures, as we see in the family members here, as very strong, positive-minded people. These were calm, philosophical-minded subjects and works that were in a biomorphic mode, particularly in his recumbent forms. A sense of monumental can be seen here in the holding of the child by the two parents, the great cradles that are formed by the two parents in the bosoms here. Like Brancusi, he did his own carving and polishing. He said, "The works of art should have a powerful pent-up vitality we don't associate with the word beauty. Such energy can be found in sculpture of different peoples and ages that we notice in the museums," end of quote. We see powerful gestures, the experience, the tenderness, the sense of embrace, the care, the compassion. We recognize these particular expressions anywhere. And we see here, again, large, powerful figures and groupings of figures that one had to go around them to get to experience the depth of their feeling or desire.